Okay, let's complete the color notes. To begin, we're going to look at the toolbar for these first four areas: foreground, background color, default color, and swapping the foreground and background. So we'll move to the toolbar down to the bottom. The default colors for the toolbar are black and white. If I click that icon, it has switched from the blue I had with the white in the background to black and white. So default colors are black and white. To swap and have white as my foreground and black as my background, I simply click this double-ended arrow, and that is your swapping foreground and background tool. Whatever I do with my pencil or my, let me swap this, or my paintbrush, so pencil, if I use the paintbrush, if I use the fill bucket or paint bucket, it is all controlled by this foreground color. So let me go to history and let's undo. Okay, whatever color is here in the background, when I go to start a new file, that will by default become the background color of the file, unless you specify a different color or no color, which is what I do. I like a transparent background, which is the gray and white checker box. So for foreground color, pencil and paintbrush and paint bucket, they all draw from your foreground color. Background color will control the background of your new files. Default colors are black and white, and the icon is directly above the foreground and background, and the swapping tool is right next to it. So let's move on now. Fill layers with color. Let's go over to layers. We have one layer here. If I want to fill this layer with the foreground color, all I have to do is hold the Option key and press backspace delete, and whatever color is set here in foreground will fill the whole canvas on that layer. Let's undo, Command Z. If I want to draw from whatever color is in the background, all I need to do is hold Command and click the backspace delete key. Okay, that's the foreground color is Option backspace delete, or fill with the background, and that is going to be Command backspace delete, Command Z. Okay, if I want to open the fill window, I can hold Shift and click on the backspace delete, and the fill window has opened. Again, you could pick foreground color or background, or just click color, and now you can pick from the color picker, click OK. Okay, that is filling a layer with color. Undo. Your paint bucket, which is here in the toolbar, but you might be seeing the gradient tool instead. They all have the same shortcut, which is G. So if I wanted to pick one of the other tools that has the same shortcut, I can't just keep pressing G, which I'm doing right now repeatedly. I have to hold the Shift key and press the shortcut, and in this case it's G, and it toggles through all the tools that have that shortcut. Okay, so back to the bucket. The bucket will fill a space with color. So I've clicked with the bucket, it filled the entire canvas. If I want to fill a specific area, I could use a marquee tool, or let's see, and draw out a selection, and then I can come right back with my bucket, click, and it fills that selection. All right, let's deselect and delete. You could use a freeform selection tool, such as your lasso, and create whatever shape you wanted. Again, it is a selection, but now that I have filled it with the bucket, it is a shape. Let's again undo and deselect. If you want to draw with your paintbrush or your pencil, let's grab the pencil. All right. Maybe I need a custom shape like this. Take my bucket, fill the space just like I did with the shape I drew with the lasso tool. However, watch what happens next. I'm going to take that pencil and I'll make a smaller version. And I didn't quite make it back to where I started from. Let's zoom in so you can see. And I'm going to take my bucket now and fill the space. And look what happened. It filled everything. It leaked through that opening. If you find you're trying to fill a specific area with color, but the color is leaking out and filling everything, or more than just what you wanted, you have to zoom in and look to see if there is an opening in your line. If there is, just grab your pencil and close that line, and now when you use your bucket, it should stay within that specific place. Let's zoom out. Okay, color picker. First, let's select everything, delete, deselect. Your color picker, I clicked right on foreground. I have the foreground color picker. The same thing would happen if I clicked on the background. I'd get the background color picker. Either way, they will function in the same way. You get the color picker open, you pick from whatever color you want. Now you will come in and specify what tint or shade of that color you're looking for. So when I say tint, keep in mind a tint is a lighter version of the color. So to get a lighter version, we're adding white. Okay? And a shade is a darker version of the color. So to get it, you will be adding black. So tint, shade, original color, hue, these are all terms for color. Okay. Now, you also have under window a color panel. You also have a swatches panel. Okay. Swatches, they're just pre-created already here in a box, but you can make your own colors and add to swatches. So you get a library of colors already created. Very handy. Now you will probably not have this view of the color panel when you open it, so let me show you what it will probably, most likely when you open the color panel, it's going to look like this. You'll see the red, green, blue, or RGB color mode with the sliders, and you'll see a color bar across the bottom. I personally do not like simply using it as you see it. I like to open it more, and I like to change it to Hue Cube because it most closely reflects our color picker. Okay, so you can pick from the color bar and then get your tints and shades from within. You will use whatever works best for you when you're doing your assignments, but it's handy to know there are different places to get the same or similar. Now, let's say I want to create a special pink just for my project. I have just created it here, and as I created it, it made a swatch. These are all temporary up here. Eventually they go away. So if I want to save that swatch, I'm going to come up here, click New Swatch, and you can see there's my very special pink. I might label it pink, or I might say my very special pink, and check off Add to my current library, which is here. Click OK, and look at that. Now, anytime I want to use my very special pink, I can go back and select it. And last but not least on your notes is the gradient tool. It's a great tool. It can take things from flat color to popping out with depth. So let's start by creating a shape. So we've already talked about you can create your own hand-drawn shapes. You could use a selection and do your own custom shape. You could use a selection and draw out one of these pre-created shapes such as an ellipse or a rectangle or a square. Let's clear everything. You can also use these shapes that exist. These are pre-created shapes. Let's do a polygon. They're a little more precise, And what you should notice though is in your layer here, you have that little box in the corner. What that means is it's not really editable at the moment. It's not pixel based. So in order for us to work with it now, we want to rasterize that layer. But before we go to rasterizing, I want you to see in properties, it is showing us some of the features from, let's see if I select it. No, it's not giving me the color now. I'm not sure why. We'll come back to that because I'll have to see why that happened. Okay, so first let's rasterize. Now it is something that we could edit if we wanted to. We could erase, which you couldn't have before. So I have a shape, it's closed. I can take my bucket and fill it, but I don't want to do that right now. I want to use the gradient tool. And again, Shift G, the shortcut, so I could have just toggled to the gradient tool. And when I click on that gradient tool, here in my options toolbar, I see the color of a current gradient. Now, if you just click the window, the arrow to open this panel or window, you get pre-created gradients. You don't want that. You want to control your gradient. Click in the color, and the gradient editor is going to open. Here again are your presets. Here is the mix that is transitioning right now, the dark purple to the lavender or light purple. You could have as many colors added to create whatever transition you want. So all you have to do is click or double click on what I call the paint buckets. You could pick a whole new color and notice how it's got a new transition. Again, you could pick whatever color and you could keep having one transition into another. When you find out you've had too many, you can click and drag down to remove, but you must always have at least 2 paint buckets. You cannot transition color with only one color. So right now I've got a light selected and a dark selected. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to come back. Now watch what happens if I just click and drag. It fills my whole canvas. But if I took my magic wand and selected the inside area and then took my gradient, now it's filling just that space. So the next thing to notice in options is you have 5 different patterns for your gradient. The first is linear. It is a line pattern of transition. The next is radial or circular. The next is a cone, so you can get sort of a pointed effect. And you can play around with these as much as you want to see the difference. Let me just go back to the linear. If you click and drag a short distance, it's very defined, very specific transition from your color to color. If you click and drag a little longer, it's a smoother transition, and of course if you click and drag long, it's very subtle and smooth. So depending on what you're doing will depend on how you want to use that gradient, and depending on what direction you click and drag will depend on the direction of your light to dark. Now you do get an option for reverse, so I'm going to click reverse. Now when I click and drag, it starts with my darker color and transitions to my lighter color. So you're going to play with the settings to see what works best for you. So you should be able to enter your description of how to create a gradient based on what you just saw and how to apply a gradient. And if you need to watch the video again, feel free.